Recorded from now on. And brownie points for being on time. Well done. We don't have lots of time for questions for some of these presentations today, but we do have time through the break. So please catch up with the speakers then. And there is a little bit of Q&A at the other end of the day, and of course the drink session at the end. So just to point that out. If we do have time for questions, we'll squeeze some in, but otherwise we'll keep flowing through. I'd now like to welcome Fiona Best from the Northwest Node, Birchip Cropping Group. And Fiona's going to talk about the Vic Hub, where we began. Thanks, Fiona. And hopefully the technology is going to work for us.
Thanks, David, because I do have a video that I want to play. So hopefully that that'll definitely keep me to time if I don't get to play that. So look, thank you to everyone for being here today. It does present a wonderful opportunity for us to share where we've come from and what we've achieved. There we go. Yep. Okay. And I think we probably don't often get to celebrate enough what we do achieve in some of these projects and activities. And as Michael and David and others have already communicated this morning, we've got a very unique situation here in the Vic Hub to do some amazing work. And whilst we have only been going for 3 years, we have achieved quite a lot. But anyway, I guess we'll get an opportunity to see a lot more during the day. But my role really is to talk about where we began. So the discussion really started in the midst of COVID, and there's elements where it feels like only yesterday that we were having these discussions. But because of the trauma of COVID-19, I've blocked a little bit of it from my memory as well. But it was 3 years ago that we really started the forming and storming and the thinking about this opportunity that was in front of us. The rhetoric coming from government of the day was that no longer was drought going to be seen as an exceptional circumstance, but rather something that was part of the everyday environment that the farmers were going to have, and communities and landscapes were going to be having to deal with. So very much moving away from that exceptional circumstance to what does drought preparedness actually look like. And so that really started to, I guess, form a lot of the thinking around how we responded. And the way the government, as Michael has said, pitched part of that response was going to be establishing 8 hubs across Australia to really focus in on drought preparedness rather than a responsive or reactionary option of looking at and visualising it as exceptional circumstances. So the forming and storming, I remember taking a lot of phone calls during the time of sort of thinking about setting up a hub or pitching an idea to government. I took a lot of phone calls from various universities about what each university wanting to pitch them to be the leader of the Vic Hub. But very clearly from the regions, it was felt that it absolutely needed to be farmer-centric, local. There needed to be collaboration. That real success was not going to come from siloed approaches or one institution holding, the key to drought preparedness. It really needed to reflect, a grassroots and grassroots-led initiative. And eventually that's where we landed. We had, ultimately we were able to put together a powerhouse of partners with 4 universities, as Michael and David has said, 5 regional nodes, led by established groups and established entities where credibility, trust, established networks were already in existence. And of course, overlaying that, being Agriculture Victoria, was having them come into the mix was extremely important. And I think what it sent was a signal that, yes, while it was a complex potentially arrangement that we'd put together and that we'd pitched, it really was going to be able to deliver a better outcome, because regions were going to be able to identify the problems, and then we were going to be able to choose who we worked with, the right people, rather than necessarily the institution. So if the best soil scientists came from Agriculture Victoria, Deakin, La Trobe, we were not, or Melbourne, we weren't going to be restricted about who we were working with and who we were going to partner with for these projects. So I think, yeah, this will be something that's mentioned quite a bit throughout the day, is that the power of the collective that we've been able to achieve through the Victoria Drought Hub is something that is unique, and I think it's something that has been a real key success factor in what we've been able to do and achieve. The geographic reach, I think, you know, when we were forming and storming, I think that local, trusted, network, grassroots component was very, very strong. And so having that geographic reach through the regional nodes, again, has been really important, particularly when we've been talking to local farmers and stakeholders about how we need to respond. We've been able to localise that discussion and localise the response. Again, we've been able to tailor it to our industries within our own regions. And yeah, I think, you know, that's been a really important part. And even my role as regional director of the Drought Hub in Victoria, I think has been quite symbolic. I obviously sit outside a university system. I sit very much in the regions, and the fact that our hub has, you know, put that role in place, I think is testament to the trust and the collaborative nature of the way we've gone about it. Here's my video that I'd like to play. Let's hope it works. We made this 3 years ago at the start.
The best time to be working on drought is before you're in drought conditions.
Historically, when we've been dealing with drought, we deal with the community or the farming sector, and we don't often bring those collaborative solutions together.
I think that's what makes the Victorian approach so unique, is that we'll be able to identify the priorities regionally and solve them collectively.
I haven't seen a project from a Victorian perspective that is so collaborative and has such great coverage of Victoria.
The strength of our hub is the partnership that we've put together to work on drought resilience in Victoria. We've got 4 universities, Deakin, Federation, La Trobe and the University of Melbourne, and we've got Agriculture Victoria. We've got 5 regional nodes. Each node is being led by a key organisation in that region. They're closely linked to all of their stakeholders, and they will be doing the consultation.
The regional nodes bring that grassroots element to the Victorian hub because they are representing their own region. They understand what their key issues are. What the Birchip Cropping Group is so excited about is the opportunity to work with such a range of different people from a whole range of different areas.
Through a quadruple helix of government, academia, industry and the community means we are guaranteed to get the most high impact that we can for rural and regional Victoria.
Agriculture Victoria will bring to the hub 2 main things. The first is our smart farms across Victoria aligned to the different industries. The second main area that we will bring is our extensive networks across Victoria.
It will also enable us, the universities, Agriculture Victoria, to be working with them on statewide functions around knowledge brokering, around digital technologies, and sharing of good ideas between the nodes, node-to-node learning. But we will undoubtedly identify gaps in our knowledge, and that will require research. But what we want to make sure is that the research clearly addresses important gaps in relation to building drought resilience.
There are 3 stages of drought and each require different management. We need to take into consideration coming into drought, managing our businesses throughout drought, and then running our businesses as we emerge from drought into a better season.
All too often what we see in the past is that if there's no money on the farm, then the local town also suffers. We want to try to break that nexus between what happens on the farm and what happens in those communities. And so that really means that looking at the potential for diversification.
The work of the hub and the nodes address not only the on-farm implications, but how can we also prepare our communities to be more resilient in times of drought? And then, of course, how will our landscapes in our own unique environments manage and be resilient through drought conditions?
In the farming sector, with the changing climate, you know, the traditional owners have been here for 40,000 years. They have knowledge that we haven't even started to tap into. Through this hub, we actually have a mechanism to ensure that not only are their voices heard, but their ideas are actually acted on.
Having the regions identify their own problems and potentially their own solutions will no doubt have a direct impact on how quickly some of these new innovations are adopted.
One of the biggest barriers to adoption is the change management process. Now, what this hub and the resources enable us to do is actually walk with people beside them to de-risk that change process.
For Victorian communities to be the centre, it certainly will shape how innovation looks like for drought, cross-industry, cross-sector, cross-supply chain.
We don't want more of the same. We want innovation. We want to see new ways of addressing drought resilience. And we think that with the team that we've put together, that we can do that.
Don't want to see it again. I've done it. So look, I think for me, reflecting on that video that we made 3 years ago, and I think it was May, 3 years ago that we made that. I guess it provides a great context for what we're about to share today. So looking back then, that's what we were hoping for. That's what was our intention. And, you know, I think it provides, great context for the projects that we're going to talk about today. One change that we made and one that we talked about as a hub was, in fact, the stages of drought. Catherine talked about 3 stages of drought, or we added one during the course of the hub, and I think that's been really, really important for us. You know, we have talked about these phases of drought, and they have supported the work that we do. We recognise that there's a good period, you know, where we're experiencing, you know, average or above average rainfall. There's an uncertain period where growing conditions, you know, are below average, but we're doing okay. It's a bit uncertain about how the season's going to progress. And then there's the drought period where we've got consistently low rainfall over a period of time. And then, of course, there's how do we recover from a period of drought. And lots of our projects that we've focused on through the hub over the last 3 years have been pitched at different points within that drought cycle. And I think that's been really, you know, to have that consistent rhetoric and consistent talking has been important. I wanted to talk about the magic. So Yes, perhaps our system, and from the outside looking in, it does seem a little complex, a bit complicated. How do you manage all of these, moving parts? But I think we've been able to deploy resources regionally, and which I think has really been empowering for our regions, and it has involved a lot of trust with a lot of resources being deployed regionally. But it has allowed capacity to be built across the region, and it's allowed regions to leverage from existing networks and existing opportunities, and also using those resources to build new opportunities and create and leverage future opportunities. I think having local consultation and understanding the region and industry-specific needs has been an outstanding element of our hub. It means that we've been able to respond with relevant information, and we've been able to do it very rapidly. And I think hopefully you'll feel it in the room today, that we have been very team-oriented and we've been very outcome-focused. And the fact that we've been able to achieve so much in such a short space of time is testament to that. And I guess, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, our ability to engage the best people and not be limited by the institution, I think has again contributed to the success of what we've been able to achieve. And finally, to the future, one of the projects that BCG worked on was something, that we called Over the Fence, but it was about, working for our communities. So this is our future, our farmers, our communities, and our landscapes. Those three objectives remain the same as they were 3 years ago when we started out. I think that's where I'll leave it. Thanks, David.